Chengdu Living Podcast. It is March 2017. My name is Charlie, and I'm seated here with some repeat guests who we've had on the podcast before, Jacob and Larry of Natooke, the Chengdu-based bike shop. Say what's up, guys.
How you doing?
Hello.
So I thought it would be an interesting podcast to talk about bike share programs, since this is something that has become really pretty unavoidable in Chengdu, I think. As I cycle around the city, which I do every day, I see hundreds of these things all over the city and increasingly diverse types of bikes, different colors, different styles. Tell me a little bit about this bike share situation that we're in Chengdu and, kind of introduce it to people who might not be familiar with it.
Well, it's been around in China, for a while. Like cities have done like government-sponsored ones for a while. But what you're seeing a lot of nowadays, they kind of started in 2014, my understanding. And then again, a couple of other brands jumped into it in 2015, where they were using like a novel technology, like app-based, where there was not, like the difference from what existed before was that there was not a like fixed locations where you had to put the bike. So you download an app, and then you can use the app to trace or to find bikes that you can use for a period of time, get charged just for the time that you use it, and then you can leave it anywhere.
So I've noticed these bike share programs overseas, especially in Europe, in Paris and in Germany. A lot of major cities have systems like these. Is China kind of just emulating what's going on overseas, or what's the real interest in doing this? Is it a commercial interest? Is it in improving lifestyle in the city, reducing traffic? What do you think are the motivations for China or Chengdu implementing a system like this?
I don't know. It's very different from most of the bike shares elsewhere. Europe, the States, oftentimes you have to register a bank card, and then the charging structure for it's different. Oftentimes the bikes come associated with certain docks, so you have to go and pick it up and deposit it at a certain place. Whereas like this one, it's just a free-for-all. They take, they implement 100 bikes, they drop them in a spot, and then just let them get wherever. So it's kind of fun seeing where they end up. Some of them like have been deposited in the city and have ended up in, the top of Longchuan Mountain, which is 30 kilometers away and up an 8-kilometer climb. So it's a bit different. As for like how it works out, most of it, like, and sort of the motivation of how these companies work and make money, is a huge item of debate, and it revolves around sort of, I would say probably market saturation. Which company has like the greatest reach and has the greatest ease of use, and people enjoy the the product, which one's easiest and most comfortable to ride around.
So do you guys get the feeling that bikes are becoming viewed differently in Chengdu? Now that bikes are everywhere and they're so accessible, and the price is what? It's like 1 RMB per 30 minutes. Is that right?
Yeah, the cheaper ones, the cheaper ones, I think it's actually half of a renminbi for 30 minutes. So
we're early into this, but what do you guys think is going to be the effects of this program?
I think it's great. Like, China used to be definitely like the cycling capital of the world, and then in the early 2000s and up until fairly recently, it kind of died a little bit. There was like, I read something, there was like 670 million bicycles used in like the 90s, and then by like 2013 it was down to like a little bit more than half of that, like 370 million. And what the bike share programs are doing now, it's just you see it, like everyone is riding them everywhere. Chengdu is just one city among many, and everyone's on them. It's making it much more accessible. They're really good for short trips, like supplementing your commute from your home to like the nearest subway station or a bus stop to your office. It's just getting more people on bikes, which is great.
Yeah, we did a TED Talk in October, and the start of the TED Talk was opened with 3 questions. It was asking the auditorium how many people knew how to ride a bike, how many people used to ride a bike to or from work or school, and then now how many people ride bikes. And for the first 2 questions, hands just stayed up. And third question, people just didn't really think about it. So kind of the premise of this talk was to encourage people, like, well, what would the city be like if people started riding again, if there was like a viable bike share program? And then within a month that happened. and it's insane. So you talk to a lot of people, and like there's a lot of buzz about it, which is part of our motivation to have this talk today. But everyone, even people that you didn't really think cared about bicycling before, it's been made accessible. So it's a lot easier to engage with bicycling and use it as a way to get around.
Yeah, and related to like what we were talked about a second ago, like it's compared to like traditional bike share programs in the West, like in New York, like Paris, Europe, different places, or things that have been done here in the past, like government sponsored things. This is private. So it is. It's novel. Like these companies are using technology, like app-based systems, to make it very very accessible and very very easy to use, pay for, and everything.
So you guys have been on kind of a long journey spreading the gospel of bikes in Chengdu. It's been
Bike life.
4 years now, something like that.
4.5. Yeah.
Right. So I remember the last time we recorded a podcast was several years ago, and we talked about Natooke and you guys being an instrumental force in the bicycle community in Chengdu and kind of seeing it grow and change. This is obviously kind of a milestone development in bicycling in Chengdu. And now it's March, so we're just kind of coming into what I imagine is the high season for you guys. What do you think these bike sharing programs, what kind of effect will they have on your business? Do you think it'll bring more people in to commit to, a bicycle lifestyle, kind of like you guys live and like many other people live, like myself also? What effects will it have on your business?
Good question. It's early, so we really aren't certain. Obviously we're paying attention to see what sort of implications it has towards us as a business. But there's generally two attitudes that we can maintain about it. One is a positive attitude in which all of a sudden bikes are accessible, and it creates attention and also reaches a larger audience. So more people will see the benefits of riding bicycles, and that may engage them with the idea of actually getting more involved with using a bicycle. The other side is the dark side, which is it serves the potential where people will be like, well, why would I pay so much for a bike of my own that I have to care for and take keep from getting stolen, and when I can just borrow this bike for 2 RMB, and it works just fine.
Yeah, I mean that like it kind of comes into like what these bikes are designed for as well, and what we do. Like they are very accessible, but they're built for short trips. It's just a matter of convenience. So like these companies like kind of following the lead of what happened a few years ago with like the like Uber and the Didi Chuxing, where there was just this intense competition to capture market share. People like these companies were subsidizing the fares just to get people in the cars, and then Uber left. The other competitors also kind of gave up, and what's left is Didi. Now with these bike share programs, like there was a Mobike or Mobi. It was early, or I think Ofo was actually first in 2014, and then shortly after Mobi in 2015. They're the biggest players for sure. And that's what they're doing now. Like they're just trying to put like hundreds of thousands of bikes all over the country in different cities to capture the market share and make their brand be associated with the most convenient one. But in terms of like how it affects our business, I mean, we, although it is like the optimistic vision that we're choosing to take, we are not competing with those kinds of bikes. Like we're we're not an entry-level bike shop. Like we sell quality bikes that have meet the uses and reasons for riding that of our customers, and that's what we pride ourselves in. So where you'll very quickly, when you use these programs, like they are convenient. Like I've used them myself, but very very quickly, like inside 2 kilometers, you realize like their shortcomings. And
Right. So I feel like we're really kind of in the honeymoon period with this, where these companies are dumping massive amounts of investment in this industry with the idea that at some point in the future it's going to pay off. And I think that the market is excited by all these new opportunities to get bikes on every corner. And you mentioned a couple of the companies. How many companies do you estimate are in this industry? Because I see yellow bikes, blue bikes, orange bikes, and it
Yeah.
feels like every
Like officially, there's I think 30 or so, but there's really just like three that are key players. Like the Blue Go-Go, I think, is like the smaller one. They're going into kind of smaller cities, like mainly second and third tier cities, and not in not in large numbers compared to the others. And then the two big players are Ofo and Mobike.
And then you see like local varieties. For instance, there was one that existed very briefly that kind of popped up at the tail end of the launch of Ofo, Mobike, Blue Go Go. There's another one called Ibu Dancha. It's like one step like bicycle. I think it was called Panda Bike. But you could look at these things and just tell immediately that they were just like their launch and their planning and implementation was just like hasty and not going to last. I mean, they took complete bikes that they probably ordered from a factory in bulk and then just straight tack welded little GPS boxes onto the back with like just really crummy locks. And I saw a bunch of those to begin with, like maybe in the first week. They were mostly in the south. Only bikes I've seen left are just completely stripped and like set at the roadside. I haven't seen any of those being ridden around, but there's a lot of people trying to get in the game.
So for people who might not know how these systems work, can you guys explain how it works? How are the bicycles distributed, managed? How would someone with an iPhone use one of these bikes? What's involved?
So yeah, anyone with a smartphone, get on your respective app store, download the app. You register. It just includes that already has your phone number, or you input your phone number. There's some kind of identification or like verifying your ID. You pay a deposit, and then you can use it. Like the other ones, I've not really paid your address too much, but like Ofo and Mobike, they like Mobike, for instance, like you once you get it, like the GPS thing is located in the bike, so you scan a QR code on the bike, it like the app will automatically and remotely unlock the bike. So there's no code or anything you have to enter, and then from the time you can reserve it if you're a little bit away from it, but from the time that you unlock it, the clock starts ticking, and then you pay like 1 renminbi per 30 minutes or something.
And then you have like a map on your phone, and you can see where all the bikes are distributed. If there's one like down the street from you,
Yeah, because the GPS is on the bike itself, then you can locate the bikes in your neighborhood, reserve one that's close, or just go down to the street, find one, and if there's a whole bunch of them right there, scan the QR code and get it and have access to it. Ofo is a little bit different. Like their app tracks your location on your phone, so they don't necessarily know the app that doesn't know where the bikes are, and then the locking mechanism is mechanical. So the code that that's one of the shortcomings, or how people are starting to abuse Ofo, is that they just remember the code on the mechanical lockbox, and then once they, in their app say that they're done using it, they still have the ability to unlock the bike and just use it without paying for it.
Right. So we had a discussion about this in your Natooke WeChat group about the haphazard of these bike systems and how they're being abused. I think the article, which I'll link to in the show notes, was specifically about Shanghai, where people were scratching off the numbers on the bikes to obscure them for other riders. And they knew the bike, the person who scratched the numbers off knew the bike number. So only they could use the bike. So it was effectively taking ownership of one of these bikes.
Yeah.
Do you guys see a lot of vulnerabilities like this, which may, stop the progression of this movement? Or how do you guys feel about the sustainability of the system given these kind of vulnerabilities?
Well, like for instance, when they launched, we kind of looked at each of them individually, looked at their strong suits, like how was the app interface, how easy was it to set up, how were the bikes designed, and the one that really took the cake was Mobike, simply because their entire program was thought from start to finish, like they thought out every little detail. For instance, Ofo, I think their strategy is a bit different. They're just trying to kind of overpower the market by just putting their bikes out there and making them cheaper and more convenient to use, and trying to engage more people just to get more people on Ofo bikes. So I don't know. I still think it's a little early to see how it shakes out, because apparently theft is a big issue with Ofo bikes, because people can do just that. They can just sort of take over ownership of it, and there's no way to track it. So loss is a huge problem. But again, they order a lot of bikes, so I don't think they're too concerned about like 10% loss, or I can't recall what the figure is, but not a small amount.
And their business models are fundamentally different. Like Mobike really looked into the future. Like the fact that their bikes are of a much higher quality. Like they're heavy, less adjustable, but they're built to last and to not require much maintenance and still function well. The GPS part of it, they invested a lot, so like into the components and like specifics of the bike. So they have more, like each bike costs a lot more. So they're not. I don't think everything I've read about it and heard, they're not even close to profitable yet. But they're backed by companies with very, very deep pockets. Ofo is and Mobike is also aiming at a larger or like a higher end clientele. Like they branded it better and like they're doing that. Ofo, their bikes are like cost like less than 400 RMB or maybe even less than that now that they're getting into the volumes that they're getting into, and they're just trying to muscle their way into the market and capture it. So then no, go ahead.
I remember when you guys opened your shop here in 2012, was it 2013?
Yeah,
12,
autumn of 2012.
We spoke about this in the last podcast that we recorded together. There were something like 8 or 9 fixed gear bicycle shops in the city. And within 2 years, that had been whittled down to 2 or 3. And now you guys are the clear front runner in this space in Chengdu. Does it seem to you guys like the same kind of thing will happen here with all these competitors vying for a really finite market maybe, and just kind of a process of elimination coming down to one, kind of like what we saw with Didi Kuaishou and
Yeah,
Uber?
I think it kind of depends on who wins. It's insanely competitive right now, and it has been since like August or September last year. If Mobike wins, they will they're likely to last. Like their program will continue to be used and be accessible. Their rental fee will probably increase once they've outcompeted the others, but it seems like their technology, the way that they're doing it is designed to last. The others, it's harder to say. Their bikes are like a lower quality. They require a lot more maintenance. Once they start to be easy to ride or function how they should, people aren't going to choose to use them. And if Ofo does outcompete the others, and that's what's left, like people are just going to see these enormous piles of yellow bikes everywhere and not be inclined to ride them at all.
Yeah, that's a big important thing, is like user experience is like, that is the value of these programs. And I don't know, it's still, again, it's still early to tell, but like having looked at all of the little details, like every little piece of each program, like Mobike's the only one that you can kind of tell that the business is oriented with like doing it outstanding. It's like the idea, do it right or don't do it at all. These other programs are trying to capture market share, but like if you've noticed, you oftentimes will see 10 or 15 Ofo bikes parked at the side of the road and they've dropped chains or the wheels bent out of shape, or they're just like in a not rideable condition. And that, it doesn't seem so problematic when you're regularly launching hundreds of bikes in a city and like the same sort of areas time and time again, but a business can't keep that up indefinitely and hope that like it's sort of just like throwing hordes of soldiers at the enemy and seeing if they'll triumph. Like I don't think that's necessarily the most effective strategy.
Yeah,
War of attrition. Yeah.
Right now, it is literally a race to who can spend the most money the fastest. Like Mobike got like $300 million investment, and Ofo is like $450 million, and they're just spending as fast as they possibly can, getting bikes out and putting them everywhere.
Yeah, I think one of the other one minor thing to consider also is the fact that like this is super new. So all these cities where these are launching, like the article you referred to, based in Shanghai, like cities also, like municipalities don't know how to deal with these programs. So I think it's going to depend partially on the business and how they cooperate with certain municipalities, cities, and everything to like see that they launch these bikes, because like the city is going to very quickly get tired of seeing hundreds and hundreds of bikes pile up and be poorly maintained or just be discarded and left in places like Shanghai. They were running kind of a program to try and like clean up these bikes and get them off the streets because they were just cluttering public spaces and not allowing people that own their own bikes a place to park. So I think that's going to change.
You know, the maintenance implications of putting these thousands and thousands of bikes all over the city are just mind-boggling. I'm trying to imagine, 1, 2, 3 years from now, what do these bikes look like? How do they work? What happens when thousands of different people are sharing these bikes? How do people treat the bikes? How do the bikes age? Do they replace the old bikes with new bikes? I have so many questions about how this works over a long time period.
Yeah, I mean, well, Mobike, like their kind of standard model, is built to, it's like nearly indestructible. Like they're solid tires. They're not pneumatic. Like they don't have air, can't pop. Their rims are plastic. They have a shaft drive instead of a chain. They're heavy as sin, but they're nearly indestructible, and then require very little maintenance. The Mobike does have like a light version, and then Ofos are similar to that. It's like they have regular spoked wheels and do require maintenance. So yeah, I mean, but the bikes, like I think the big thing that if the bikes need regular maintenance, like the resources necessary to implement that on the scale that they are putting bikes out there at the moment is not sustainable or possible. I mean, now like they're all of these companies their main goal is to just capture market share. They don't care at the moment. They have other ways of. I mean, they use people's deposits while it's being held to make money. They are tracking your traffic, like your data as you travel. So that's a valuable asset for them to generate other income. I mean, they're definitely not relying on the like the revenue generation from the rental fee.
The one RMB, yeah.
Well, Ofo actually kind of is, because their bikes are cheap. I mean, I've seen some figures. They're like a little bit more than 300 renminbi. Some they're even less than that. So they do make their money back within a relatively short period of time. Mobike does not. So.
Is the design of the bike actually very novel? I mean, when you look at the Mobike in particular, in my opinion, and I'll include a photo with the podcast post, but it looks pretty cool. It looks unconventional. It doesn't look like a normal bike, and a lot of the other shared bikes look like conventional bicycles to me. Is there anything very novel about the Mobike design in particular?
Yeah, so like Mobike was designed for minimal maintenance, for longevity, and just like ease of use. Like it's a universal sizing essentially for just like the general Chinese public. So that includes, like as Larry mentioned, you have these solid wheels. It has this asymmetric drivetrain. So like you only have a frame on one side of it, and then encloses like a drive shaft, which is something you don't really see on mini bikes. So, and then part of the philosophy, I think, behind having something that looks different is also to kind of capture, like to distinguish themselves against everyone else. Like Ofo, they use the same factory that, say, Decathlon would. And they just go in and they say, okay, what is your cheapest bike? And we're going to take 4 million. So that gives them a lot of leverage to just bargain on it. And then, that's certainly not the case with Mobike. I think the only other program that has put some kind of like genuine thought and ingenuity into the design of the bike is Blue Go Go. Their bikes are also pretty nice. They went with an aluminum frame set, which is strong, but it makes the bike a little lighter. So they're a little bit more purpose built to be like comfortable to ride, sort of stand out. Most of the bike share programs, though, like the other 70%, they all just, I think, approach factories here and say, hey, we'll give you a really big contract. What's the best deal you can give us? And use like their purchasing power to leverage and get a better price so they can try and get more bikes and distribute them in more places.
One thing I feel, this is a little bit of a tangent, but one thing I feel a little bit dissatisfied about with this bike share program is that I cannot comfortably ride any of them. So it doesn't. I'm 6'4". I'm much taller than the average Chinese person. So it's obviously they're not made for tall people.
They're made for the bell curve.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you are not in the bell curve.
So it's like 5'10" and under. Because I see actually a lot of my friends riding these. I'll meet them at a restaurant or a bar or something, and they will have ridden these bike share bikes there, or they'll ride them when they leave. And some of these people have their own bikes, or they have an e-bike, or they have other method of transportation, but these bikes are just everywhere, and so it's easy for them to use.
Mm-hmm.
Like we had a friend who was a cyclist, has a couple of his own bikes, and then he recently started using Mobike for just for the sheer convenience. And he also sees value in it as exercise because the thing is so terribly unfit for him to ride that it just takes him more work. So what would typically be like an A-OK ride on his standard bike that's built for him. If he gets on a Mobike and decides he's going to ride that 16 kilometers, like he's going to get triple the workout out of it as he would with with his normal bicycle. So I think that like some people like sort of see that extra effort that they have to put in riding a bike that's not really designed to be ridden that kind of distance, and they're like, all right, well this is, I'm getting a little benefit out of it. I've heard a few people say that actually.
Yeah, I mean they like by not making them adjustable, like it's simpler. Like there's one less moving part or something that the average, not necessarily educated user can mess up. Yeah. And then they need to be accessible to short people. So they're made to be, rideable by that group. And then if you're even a little bit taller, yeah, it's like it's not ideal. But on a short distance, like I've used them. I mean, I have a number of bikes myself, but if I'm going to go and meet a group of people and everyone's not riding, or the majority of people aren't riding, like I would rather just not have to deal with my biker and take one of these bike share bikes and then just leave it wherever when I'm done. And for a distance of 2 kilometers or less, like I'm happy to. After that, like I would very much consider taking my own bike because it just like riding the bike share bikes becomes like much less than enjoyable.
Right. So I'd like to hear more about that. You guys, first I'll say you guys published a post on your own website about these bike share bikes and the bike share programs in Chengdu, and I'll link to that. I think you described the experience of riding on these, but can you describe maybe I know that when these bikes became available, you made it a point to get one and to ride around on it, and you kind of shared your impressions on what you noticed. Can you describe that? Like, describe your first time riding, let's say, the Mobike, since that seems to be the standout. And what did you notice about it? It's very heavy. Are there any other descriptions you can offer?
I mean, for myself, it was short and very heavy. The gearing was also pretty low, so even though it was heavy, it was easy, like fairly easy to pedal from a stop. But the low gearing also limits like the top speed. So, and again, I only rode it I rode it for a short distance once and had, found it to be okay. That's something that I would repeat. And then when I tried it again for a slightly longer distance, by the time I arrived at my destination, like my knees hurt and my back hurt, and I felt that it was a 25 kilogram bike.
Yeah, my deep, dirty secret is I've never actually ridden any of these bikes. I went through the process of registering for them to get familiarized with it. I've seen them unlocked. I've just never had any interest because I've also, like, our business is selling bikes, so I've ridden plenty of really overly small, uncomfortable junk bikes. I know how it feels. So to the novelty of putting down the deposit just to say I've ridden it, I haven't taken that leap yet, and probably won't. Not to say I don't recommend it for other people that can see convenience in it, but like I also have more bikes than I need essentially. So the idea of giving my money to a company to hold on to allow me free access to these bikes that would not be very comfortable to ride around on is just not endearing to me.
Totally. For me as well. I have a bike from you guys, and I have another bike, and I really, really value them, and they're a huge part of my life. But as we wrap this up, I will offer a final thought. I'll give you guys a chance to leave yours as well. I really hope that through these bike share programs, people get introduced to an alternative bicycle lifestyle, which they find more practical, more healthy, to reduce the stress in their lives, to get more exercise, to get where they're going faster. And I hope that they graduate from these humble bikes into, better bicycles, which are more enjoyable and faster and just overall better. And that would be a really good outcome as we go into the spring and the summer. You guys have any final thoughts on bike share programs or these bikes?
Yeah, like I think I can speak on behalf of our business. Like we're really pumped about the potential benefits of like re-engaging the general public with bicycling to get around. I mean, it's something we've always worked really hard to try and encourage and build a community around bicycling, but you know, it's not easy work when people are intimidated by, you know, using the bike, exercising, maybe getting caught in the rain, getting it stolen, having to fix it, pay for it, care for it, park it. Like, there's a lot of inconveniences to having a bike, and this eases people into it. So, you know, in October when we did that talk, and at the end of it, the idea was like, wouldn't it be great if like the city could go back and realize like how awesome it is to ride around a bike? And, you know, wish came true. A month later, everyone's like really into these bike shares, and I think it's gonna just continue to have like a positive effect and shape how people get around and get exercise and enjoy themselves.
Yeah, I mean, there's an expression within the cycling industry. It's just like life's too short to ride a shitty bike. So, you know, like once you, I mean, not that they're shitty, but once you ride these bikes, like they're good for their purpose, but you quickly realize their limitations. And you know, we very much hope that these programs introduce a lot more people to riding. But then, you know, once they see those benefits, that they also see the benefit of, you know, having a bike that fits them, that, you know, fits the purpose of how they want to ride much better and can enjoy it even that much more.
Amen. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me. I will link to your website and to your WeChat account. To anyone who's in Chengdu and listening to this, you can visit the Natooke Bicycle Shop. The address will be in the post. And here's to a good 2017 with lots of bicycles.
Thank you.